very positive for me, and at the same time for you, because I've taught before. Like I know that thing where when you're sharing your knowledge with someone, you learn more about your own craft. Do you know what I mean? So that, and the more how I evolve, it's an expression of your, ability to share your knowledge. Right.
And what medium do you usually use?
Well, I've done print. That's where I started. And right now I'm doing web design, but I don't do any coding. But I'm not completely foreign to it.
Do you use CSS at all?
Yeah, I've worked with it. It's just I'm not fluent.
Okay.
I don't work in it enough, or I'm getting paid to work in it.
Do you do wireframing first and then hand it off to the third person?
I would be the person that would take it before it went to final publication and imported high-res images or just changed fonts. Like basically what I would do is that they would give me this built site or this built document for print, and then they would give me a sheet of markups of all the things that I needed to change, and I would flight check it and change everything and get all the kerning and the leading, all the stray anchor points and all the fonts in line, package it all up, and then get it to final publication. So that's what I've been doing. So I've got all my technical things on that, like on the very end part of it done, but now I want to work on it from the beginning. I want to be the initiator, the designer. Do you know what I mean?
That's a great idea.
Well,
so why don't you partner with somebody who has the technical end?
I need to meet them.
You met one.
Well, that's why you can meet guys like me.
I need to meet somebody
I want to tell names.
Hold on.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I need somebody.
The goal of this conversation is
I need somebody who's a fluent CSS or a fluent scripter.
I know a couple people I can.
And then I can take, and then that's my weakness right now. And then it would help me get better in that department, because when you design, you can't be proficient technically and proficient creatively if you're one is sacrificed. It's really hard to do both all the time. It's hard to design and edit your own work.
Right.
Because when you design it, it's like, here, somebody else edit it. Or someone else go through with a fine-tooth comb and iron iron everything out. But right now, I'm trying to do it all, and stuff always suffers because of it. So if I could work with people who are a bit more technically inclined than I am, and also have a bit more freedom creatively and have a bit more experience creatively, then it would help me kind of like stretch myself out better, because right now I'm kind of in the middle.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's a great book called The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. It talks about the entrepreneur and a number of other areas, technician and the manager. And you can be the great technician, but if you're not the entrepreneur and the manager, it doesn't go anywhere. So there's three areas, so it's a great book you may want to read, and I'm going to be reading it all the time. So you may find other people who fit that piece of the pie for you.
Yeah.
So you say you want to meet new people. Well, it is about networking a little bit. And Demetrius just said, I can introduce you to this person. That's what happened to me. I went out, I networked, met my mentors, and then I grew my network.
Yeah.
Now I have great resources that I can offer. I was telling TM earlier how I'm connected with this person, or I was connected with that person in that industry. But the way to find out is to ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
But it doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's always an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And if you realize your funnel always needs to be full, some way. So you always have to keep working at it. So waiting is not going to happen. Waiting is just an excuse, I guess.
Yeah, it's trying to get out of your comfort zone and do those things that no one keeps doing. Like I was saying, innately my nature is to turn on my computer and build stuff. So I have to get into that mindset where I'm going out more and
like today, like today, you're here.
Exactly.
You're exchanging ideas.
But people also just not for social purposes for the sake of being social, but actually for that intent.
Right.
Yeah.
For meeting people who are in my industry who want to pool their resources together. Like
maybe you need people outside of your industry. Maybe you need people outside of your industry.
Did you have something to add to Demetrius earlier?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so you work independently, right? Freelance?
Right now, yeah.
Did you work with anybody beforehand, like in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked for, graphic design companies, but it's always been as a production artist, as a designer.
Right.
And so this has been working for myself, has been my opportunity to design. I mean, I'm steady, but I'm not, it's not paying all my bills.
Right.
I still have to do other types of work
Sure.
too. And plus I'm also trying to get more, knowledge business-wise, so that I'm not, I'm keeping myself balanced and well-rounded. Again, if you spend too much time in front of your computer, you become, you sort of have to also know how to manage yourself, manage, that circulation of income, how to strategize it, or you know what I mean, right?
It is, and as you said earlier, and that's where I assigned the team earlier. A lot of things the team I've done in the past has because we pooled our resources, and we did a great event last year called Word 11, where we pooled our resources, and a lot of people I met from that event I've done some great joint ventures with. And so you have to go out there. So you said earlier, I have to get away from my computer and go out there and meet some people in your industry or outside your industry. And there's meetup groups. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So stepping out and doing a couple of months is a starting point.
Why would you say that meet people outside of your industry? Why would that benefit you more?
So you're a graphics person. You need to meet people who are UX people, people who are SEO people, people who are actual web developers.
Yes, exactly.
Because it takes at least 10 different people to make a successful website.
I know, exactly.
At least 10 people.
Exactly.
And you don't need just one SEO person. Maybe you need 2 or 3. You maybe need a UX person.
Yeah, I don't need any other designers. What I need is people who can do the coding.
I think you need more than just the coding. It's the actual strategy of the website. What should the website be about? The name matters so much. Like that's right. Every name has a particular
but I feel
value.
like I have very strong inclinations in that direction. Like even though I'm not formally trained as a marketer, for some reason I feel like I can take a demographic. I mean, I wouldn't expect the same kind of money somebody who had 10 years experience, but to be broken in, I think I have the ability to sort of have someone come up to me that I have this, product. And I think I could build a marketing campaign around it. I mean, it probably wouldn't be quite the same way that somebody's been doing it for 10 years, but at the same time, I wouldn't be expecting the same amount of money. So if they
But it's not about that though, right? 'Cause if you can't say to somebody that has San Pellegrino, I can do it for $5,000, because San Pellegrino wants to be global.
Yeah.
Right? And every other person that aspires to have a product in the market wants it to be a multi-million-dollar product. So in order for you to sell that service, you can't just say, well, I have the inclination.
Yeah,
like Interbrand doesn't say, I have the naming strategy.
No, we
have Joe Schmo here. They're going to sell you a $500,000 naming strategy.
Right.
Alone.
But I mean, what if you have somebody who let's say has a small clothing line or a hairdressing shop or something like that, and they're sort of independent and they're sort of alternative.
That's fine.
And
then you sell them the same service.
Indian, so they're willing to sort of take that chance. I don't want to make it a major investment.
Well, they're not in it for business.
Hi. It's good to meet you, Ellie Catherine. Hi. How are you? I know.
Grab a seat over there.
Unless you changed it recently.
So yeah, part of it
So
is.
that it might be circumstances might have something to do with it.
It depends on the clients you want too. Like if you want small independent clients, you're just afraid that they're going to say no to your price. They're going to balk at the price, so you want to be low enough. And small.
I'm afraid sometimes it's going to be more work than I had anticipated.
Well, that's always been
always like that.
Right?
They always want more than
And I'm gonna
If you work for somebody else, or if you work for yourself, like when you work for other people, it's always been more than they told you.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I remember I got
that it will
really
be the same
ambitious
way
and
when you're
I
independent.
said to a friend of mine, because I was in that situation where it's an indie situation, right? So it's kind of like you have a bit more liberty.
Yeah.
And I made a music video for him because I wanted to know what that experience would be like.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoyed it, but man, there were days where I just thought,
How many hours was it?
oh God, I mean, I'd have to say it took me about a month, but it was just sporadic. Weekends, whenever we could just all get together and shoot it and then edit it, and I mean, when I look back on it, I was like, oh God, I would have done so many things differently. But at least, again, I broke myself in.
Right.
And now the next one would be a lot easier for me.
So would you say you spent 80 hours on it or 100 hours?
I would say I spent.
Did you break even on it?
Yeah, he paid me. I mean.
He paid you, sure. Did he pay you? Was it worth your time? Did you have to find another job during that time?
It was more work than I thought it was going to be.
But did you have to support, like at the end, were you still going with shit? How am I going to?
No, I had other work
Okay.
coming in. That's the thing. I probably spent, I would say, how many hours? How would I break that down in hours? I would say at least 80 hours to 100 hours.
That's what it takes, generally.
Yeah.
Even if this is your 10th time. Because every time you do a music video, you want to do it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you make $10,000 on it? as an independent
I mean,
person?
I had a handy cam. I mean, it was very low.
Oh,
budget.
okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. This was there was no high-end equipment.
Oh, I see.
But you know,
Because
the
sometimes
process was done.
I think you want to get work because you're afraid of rejecting people. Like you're like, somebody will come to you and say, oh, I want you to design the Motorola, flip phone. And you're like, oh, I'll do it for 500. And you just want the work, and you want the recognition, and then you bankrupt yourself emotionally and physically and ethically because you wanted it for so long.
Yeah, because they fool you into thinking that it's all about your portfolio.
It's
a
not.
portfolio piece, and at the end of the day,
It is and it's not. It isn't.
You know, I'd rather not do it for the money. I would say, no, I don't want your $5,000. I want
royalties.
I want 20% of the business and 5% royalty.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good point, because I don't think we realize that initial payment is that initial payment, but how much money that object makes in the long term that we don't get exposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And your design is on that. That is
Yeah.
part of what's making it sell.
I had a conversation about
Really?
that yesterday with somebody about. It's funny. As a designer, we develop identities and brands, and we sell them at a hard cost of $50,000 for a medium-sized business.
Sure.
And they profit millions.
Right.
Let's just pretend $1 million a year until they rebrand 7 years later, and we get nothing. But a perfumed package designer will design a bottle for Chanel and make royalties for the rest of their life at like 0.5%.
Do you know why?
Yeah. Well.
Because they're not in Canada. In Canada, there's like a rule. You're not supposed to do anything on percentage.
Yeah, but they'll make royalties on that package forever. Like, so, Chanel will sell number 5 for $20 million.
Yeah.
And they'll make $100,000 a year in royalties on it.
There you go.
But designers aren't allowed to sell our print branding and make a royalty on it. Why not?
Can you explain that rule?
So there's an ethics rule for designers. And I had a friend who was an industrial designer, and I told her, just partner with me. Like, we know each other really, really well. We've been going to school for, we took some SolidWorks classes together, and we knew each other for 3 years. And I told her, I have some ideas for this product. You can just refine it and make the product look good. I can bring it to market. I can market it, put it on the web, and bring it to market. And she said, no, I can't do anything on percentage. And she gave me a link to a website that says it's a code of ethics. We're not allowed to do anything on spec.
Is that for industrial designers?
Designers in general, but
And that's a Canadian thing?
Oh, speculative, yeah. If you're like RGD or GDC, speculative work is a no-no.
but speculative work is what entrepreneurship is all about.
But the thing is, it degrades our market, right? If we're in Toronto and it's saturated, and I'm fully in support of no spec. If you don't feel like your product is worth the money to pay me to develop it, then I'm not going to waste my time.
So what about that Chanel guy who's making $100,000 a year?
He got paid for it in a contract prior to getting the royalties. It's not just based on royalties. He got paid to develop and design.
Did he get the full pop like he would get in Canada?
Sure, yeah, he would get the like if I design a package, right, and they would pay me $10,000 to design a package, a box with print material on it.
Yeah.
Sure, they would pay that up front, but then it would be written for commissions to make.
But what happens if I say, look, I'll give you 10% of the company, you own 10% of the shares, so you're basically a partner now.
That's different because you paid me for the work to be done.
If I don't pay for the work, I will
say
but
no.
I'm not getting paid. I'm working
Doesn't matter.
for 10%
Because
of the
my
company.
work has value to it, even though it's intangible.
So does mine.
Right, but I work in creativity. Yours does not work in creativity.
I think picking a domain name is very creative.
Well, you have it now, right?
But I have 1,000 of them, and I know, like for example, my cousin bought culturaclub.ca,
Okay.
and he wanted to use it for a cafe.
Okay.
And he decided last month he's not going to open up his Cultura Club, he's going to open up his back a cafe instead. So now he says, don't renew the domain name. So I did a reverse keyword search on Cultura Club to see what would this domain name really be good for.
Yeah.
Any ideas what it's good for?
The cafe.
What's the domain name really good for? What's the domain?
Cultura.
What industry?
Yeah, what industry?
Stripping.
What should the website be about?
Coffee.
Cultura.
Yeah.
Sounds like a brass rail. What is
It's
it?
completely opposite than it.
Well, yeah, completely opposite. It should be a music website about the top 100 songs. It should be, remember this
Like Culture Club.
Like Culture Club, right? And they had the Google keyword search didn't mention Culture Club.
Yeah.
It just mentioned download music. It just was all about music.
Right.
So if you want to get good search engine rankings, if if you want to have, a lot of traffic
Their domain name.
for that particular domain name,
That's
you
the
have to
business
have
you go
that
for.
business in there.
Yeah.
And it takes somebody with skill to figure that out. The average person just can't guess that.
But it also takes me, 300 hours to develop a full brand line for you.
And I'm going to spend 1,000 hours just building the website.
Well, that's debatable, but that's debatable.
Because it never ends, like Facebook. It's still under construction.
Sure, but he's making billions, so it doesn't matter anything.
He hasn't made a dime yet.
He's made plenty.
It's just gone public. He was making $1 a year.
Oh, come on. Who told you that?
It was on their IPO.
And you think his lawyers are going to tell you, just pay us when you get rich, please.
I'm going to sell you my stock just so I can get some cash flow.
Yeah.
I saw the movie. That was interesting. The movie was very interesting.
The movie was also heavily mitigated and looked over by their lawyers before it went out.
Yeah. Those two guys were naive. They were naive. Those two brothers were very naive.
Oh, they're well.
Yeah.
They're still not over it.
The Winklevosses, they shouldn't have gotten a nickel. All they had was a raw
in the
idea.
US, I think it's true. You could sue for anything and you could always win.
Yeah.
There's always money in suing, right? So.
The only reason why they had an arguable case is because Mark led him on, said, yeah, I'm going to work on your website, but he really wasn't. He was working on his own. And that just stopped the push on
Of course, but I mean...
That's what upset me. He let them on. That's what they could. That
and he
was
didn't
hard.
agree to a price or
He had
anything.
a certain amount of power in the situation.
I'm trying to
He
do
knew it. He knew he had power over them because he had knowledge that they didn't have.
Yeah.
Sure, go right ahead.
Do you know what I mean?
But he had the idea before they had it.
No, he didn't. See, that's what I disagree with. So,
He was doing that thing with the girls.
yeah, when they mentioned what they were doing, it put the pieces together that he was on the right track. But if he wouldn't have met them, he would not have figured it out.
But at that point,
He would have
they didn't have
taken
anything that was
longer.
protectable. Like if I wanted to patent a business method
That's
they
right.
had, they didn't have anything that was protectable.
I
They
think
didn't.
we can't base our theories on the media or the movie.
But we
it's
saw what
very
we saw.
fair.
We saw the movie showed us, and that's what I took
The
from
movie,
it.
The movie's fabricated for Hollywood. Come on,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And that's 1/10 of 1% truth.
So,
And lots.
well, it came out, and that's what they said.
So we're talking about no spec versus having an equity interest in business, and then plus a royalty.
You'd have to prove, I think, for somebody that is a firm believer in no speculative work, that there is money at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend 6 months of my time living off thin air, right? I have,
So how do
everybody
you
has to eat.
quantify somebody's work?
Well, that's part of the argument, right?
So here's
Right.
what I was told.
But how do we do that here? Because obviously we can't do speculative work here. in Canada.
So what I was told
we
is
can.
you
You
actually
can. Spec work
give
you
them
can.
double the compensation through speculative work. So you say, okay, this business we're projecting to make $1 million a year on
Yeah.
this. There's 10 of us.
Right.
You're worth $50,000 a year as a graphic artist at a design house. Well,
If you're lucky.
okay, if you're lucky.
No, it's true.
If we're talking, like we're going to give you 10% interest in the business, so you're looking at $100,000 a year. Maybe that's worthwhile.
And you're giving me 10% of the business because I'm making some kind of investment into the business?
Time investment. We're all making a time investment. We're all
Okay.
doing different
So
tasks.
I'm getting that royalty out of the business. kind of
Right.
thing.
And everybody's
You're
going
getting
to
that investment. It's not a
Okay,
royalty.
where do I sign?
Well, it's like a dividend. It's a
Yeah.
dividend at the end of the year,
Yeah.
after there's profits, after you
Right.
pay all the bills, you
Right.
get your financial statement done, and there's $1 million left over. There's 10 guys in it, they all put in an equal amount of energy, assuming that for now. Then you get equal shares in terms of dividends. And there's a way of doing that. You can structure with Class B shares, and you say, okay, I put in 100 hours, so I get 100 Class B shares.
But I think it's different. If you're going into business with somebody, I'm
Yeah.
developing a product for you. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say yeah. It's like when you work for a company and they say, "Can you just design us something? We just want to see what it looks like." And you're like, "Well, it's gonna take,
Oh, I would never do that.
if this happens.
Yeah.
Can you just design this for us?" It's like 10 minutes,
I know, and then it was.
So you start on like Monday morning and you finish on Sunday night.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And you spend all that time and then you put it into their system, if it's billable hours or time spent, whatever you call it. And then they come back to you and you're like, "Demetrios, why did you spend 47 hours on this?" And you're like, "Well, that's what it took to finish it."
Yeah.
I only asked you to spend 10 minutes. I've only asked you to spend... So in my mind, do what that says? They valued that piece of work at 10 minutes of my cost. So $23.
I would have done 10 minutes of work, and so this is what 10 minutes would get.
I
I've done
know,
that before,
because
but that's
there's no
not
magic
acceptable when
button.
you're in a work environment,
Okay.
right? When you're under a contract. And then they say, "Well, why didn't you do this job last week? Why are you falling behind here?" Because they keep on asking you, and that goes back to you wanting to meet management people right? People to help you, or people to develop for developers. You hope that in your field you have people that understand your field to work with you.
Yes,
Because otherwise,
because there's no magic button. And when you're speaking, because every genre has its own dialogue, has its own vocabulary.
and everybody
you know,
wants
and
to be a
when you're
designer.
Dealing with a client who doesn't understand your vocabulary, and they're trying to make you understand a process or a look, or you know what I mean, or some kind of style, and it doesn't relate to how you're going to execute it. It makes it difficult because 10 minutes. What happens in 10 minutes? This is, I mean, cutting and pasting is where this industry started, but that is gone. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Argued.
so, you know, the whole process of designing something, when you take it through all the steps and all the various softwares, you have to sort of.
But design doesn't start at a computer, right?
Right.
It's thought process.
It's a thought
And if
process,
they don't understand that,
trial and
at the end of the day,
you have to try.
you'll dig yourself a grave in any agency or in any.
Well, not only that, but then
Doesn't
there's
support
also
that.
the issue of, but I wanted something simple, but this is too simple. I want it to be really shocking. This is too shocking.
You know what you use?
You know, you have to sort
And
of.
the way you
read
stop that
somebody's
from happening is
mind,
use a
right?
pen or a pencil and a piece of paper until they get it.
Yeah.
And then you move it to digital. Like I can design this in 6 minutes on a piece of paper.
My
to do it on
other-
generate it art-wise, like in Illustrator and Photoshop, takes hours of revision.
Yeah, and I actually
Hours.
don't draw very well. Like I'm not a fluent drawer, so I start with the machine. Like I start with.
Then
I
stop,
wrong with
stop
doing
the
it.
machine.
I know.
Stop.
I have to start
There you go.
drawing.
You'll make more money on a pad of paper than you will on a
That's what
machine.
they did to me when I was.
That's my teacher Ryerson. You can't pass unless you can draw.
Oh, not anymore.
No, see, I can't.
I was the
can
last year of
trace,
like
but
design
I'm not a very
school
good
where we did marker rendering.
They're doing it now for clothing fashion designers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's necessary. You need to have freehand skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't draw very well. I mean, I can trace.
Right.
I've drawn before, but I don't. It's not normally where I
How
start.
do you visualize stuff?
I actually start right within the machine. I start right within Illustrator.
It's so limiting, don't you find? I'm guilty
like I
of
said,
it.
but I've only been a designer for the last year. So I've been working as a production artist
Right.
for such a long time,
Yeah.
right? So
I think a lot of jobs too are production heavy. I don't know. Even as a designer,
that seems to be where the
design
volume,
manager,
the bulk of the work is.
It's all
is-
production.
It's all production, yeah. But yeah, I would need to go back to school and learn how to draw because it's just not something. I mean,
Don't
I
go
can
back
do
to
it.
school, you do
I
it for free.
actually do it for free. I just keep tracing until
You know
I
what
get
you
better.
do in school? You spend 40 hours a week in the classroom.
My other issue with freelance, and this is just something I want to bring up in case anyone else has any feedback, is when you're dealing with a client and it's your own equipment, is it partially their responsibility to invest in your equipment
No.
as far as maintenance?
Your equipment is your cost,
Yeah.
right? But the rights for the materials are the responsibility of you and your.
You have to have a written
You mean
contract.
you mean storage?
You need to
No.
in terms of who owns the copyright
Yeah.
or the design. So
You might give them a final PDF, but the InDesign file or the Illustrator file is yours.
unless you make an agreement that says it's theirs, they own the copyright, they own the design, and you'll assign any rights that are left over
Yeah.
to them, and you'll waive your moral rights. That has to be in a written contract in Ontario.
And
Usually it's something you can charge higher.
Yeah.
yeah, you charge 100%, usually like 70 to 100%.
And in that case, they cover all your costs.
Well, because that's another dilemma I keep running into is that I've often shared files that other people have designed, so they're flattened, compressed PDF files, but then I have to work on them. And so they're not my designs, there's no fonts, they don't know what the fonts are, they don't have any relationship with this person anymore, there's no
Are
contract.
you buying stuff?
Sorry?
Are you buying fonts then to use?
Oh, I have many fonts, yeah.
And do you? Okay, yeah. There's a whole
I've
bunch of
bought
legalities
fonts
in
just from
that.
working in the industry and dealing with other graphic designers and just sharing, and
If that's legal. I know. Sharing fonts. There was 2 agencies I know of that got busted by Adobe big time.
yeah.
Yeah.
The copyright infringement is not that huge a liability in Canada right now.
Yeah.
It
But
will be
they-
with UC11,
Yeah.
but right now it's only a $500 fine. But C11 it might be $25,000.
That is per font.
For,
Right.
So
for instance, yeah.
how many fonts do you work with on any given? And you've purchased all your fonts?
Yep. I on any
Yeah, I
given
was
moment
given a lot of
probably
fonts.
12 different fonts. It's like fragrances. You only need a couple. You know.
Yeah.
You look
There's
around. It's Helvetica
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Comic Sans. So.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What are your
Well, I'm listening because I came in the middle and was just
That's
listening.
fine.
But I think that we all have these own problems with clients.
Yeah.
I myself not contact with customers directly because my brother's company. I mean, they give me they directly contact with the customers usually.
Yeah.
I just deal with them. I mean,
Internally.
yes. So, but I want to know what's the solution for all these things that we know there are problems with
Conflicts.
clients and blah blah. How we can educate them, like to sit 3 and 4 hours with the client and educate them that
Have a video.
what we should
Yeah.
do.
Literally, we
So,
should
for
have
example,
videos
one
on your
logo. When
website.
I want to design one logo, it takes like
17 revisions.
maybe.
Have a video of how long it's taking you to do a logo, and then have a clock as when you design things, so the clock will go fast. So you have a 30-second video or a minute video that shows all the iterations.
Time lapse.
Time
Yeah.
lapse, right? And then you take the video ends up being time lapse video of all the.
But even videos, most of them, don't understand it. So okay, you can do it like 1 hour, all this stuff.
It doesn't
Yeah, we were
matter,
just
yeah.
talking about that.
So, but it's like that you have to sit with them like
Mhm.
3-4 hours and educate them and be very patient because some of them are totally, in their
They don't
world.
speak our language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
What
oh,
I did when in my very first company is I did a fundamentals of design for every client I had. So they would pay like like $200, $250. They get it's pretty cheap at the time, but they get a rundown of everything they need to know about typography, the color coordination, what makes blue, everything to do with design, so they can actually know how to speak to us when we actually need to speak to them.
Yeah.
So when I'm on the phone, spending 20 minutes or half an hour, I'm going to be using terminology like copy, anything else, and
Verbatim.
Exactly, and they understand.
Like,
Rather
what?
than me during the very end say, well, do you understand? And they say no. Then that's the type of client I wouldn't want to have, or I would want to charge more.
Right.
So I've had clients.
So do you charge for that consultation?
I do. I charge a fee, but I will discount my rates if they pass.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
if they don't pass, the price go up by 90%. Or I've had clients who actually refused, and of course my rates are higher because it's just you're taking up my time.
Yeah.
And I've had clients who said, no, I'll go with someone else. I said, no problem, go with someone else, and they came back to me and asked for that cost.
And do they pay for the consultation?
And what do you charge now?
I don't do it anymore.
Oh, when was the last time you charged $250? You said.
Yeah, around 250.
That's nothing.
Yeah, I know. So it's usually a weekend's work.
Yeah, unless they expect you to do a project for 250, and they're like, cause some people come to you and they have a price point in their head. They only want to pay $100, right, to design a logo or whatever they want to call it.
I know, and it's something that's going to either
100
trademark of their company for like maybe 10 years, and they only
and-
want to spend $100 on it.
Well, that's what Twitter did. They bought a $5 logo.
Then go to like
Yeah,
Graphic
yeah.
River and buy a $5 logo for Christ's sake. Don't waste my time.
Yeah.
I can direct you. Give me $90. I'll give you a whole hour of consultation. I will direct you to very inexpensive websites.
Yeah.
Go buy it.
Fiverr.com. Go for it.
Yeah. Seriously. I think what we have to do as designers is talk to the people that we work with that sell. If it's not ourselves that's doing it, it's the people that are managing the process. And if these people sell a product that I am to do, like I branded visual identity, one half, and the last 3.5 years, 40% of my portfolio has been high-end keynotes for CEOs.
Okay.
And not PowerPoint keynote. So it's like it's infographic visualization, and they don't understand it, of course. But when they present it, because the speech has been written for them, and they've been briefed for 6 meetings, so it looks like they've done it all by themselves. But the process is, oh yeah, we can do that. We'll get Dimitrios to do it, and then they come back to me, and I'm not part of the meeting, and they tell me, oh, they need this, 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 and this, and this needs to be done by Tuesday morning, this needs to be done by Wednesday, and we have a meeting on Thursday to revise, and then Monday morning we're going to be giving it. They don't consult with me and ask me, because I have 5,000 other projects, I'm the only designer for that particular firm.
I would leave the firm.
It's done already, but
Okay.
Do you ever consider working for yourself now that?
I did. That's the way they found me. I worked for myself.
So you registered yourself as you have your own?
I did. I'm just freshly out of corporate world, so, and but they found me. They had a business card of mine. Somebody passed along, and they gave me a call, and I interviewed against 23 people, and I got
And
the
are
job.
you using their equipment or your own?
Well, if I worked for them, I would use their company. But they didn't have a designer beforehand.
And
right?
do you have your own editing suite?
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
yeah.
You're
'cause-
equipped to work from home if you
Oh
need
yeah,
to. Okay.
yeah. So part of it is educating the people that manage your process. If you aren't able to, or if the structure you're in doesn't allow you to manage, because if you're doing the design and somebody else is doing client management, but they don't know what they're talking about, that's a big problem. That's a disconnect. And what happens is eventually you get frustrated and you get angry with them, and they're like, all they hear is the client saying that I'm not satisfied. I was like, I'm not satisfied. Why am I not getting? You're showing me black lines and and they don't understand it, and you're like, I'm giving you the Pantone numbers, and they're like, well, Pantone, the client one, and at the end of the day, there's all of this disconnection.
Yeah.
It's like walking in a path downtown, you don't know where you're going, you're going to get somewhere eventually.
Yeah.
So it's educating the people that manage it, and if you're doing it on your own, it's everything in writing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Even if you don't consult for the 1 hour, you give them that briefing.
And if they want to do a change, have a clause in there of changes should be acknowledged by email, and send them an email and say, please reply to this, please approve this change,
Yeah.
and the cost for this change will be X dollars.
And there's different, like for your job as a freelancer, there's different ways of structuring your fees to accommodate for your style of work. There's like 8 different ways of billing for work. You can do like 50% up front, you can do tiered billing, you can have sliding scale. So for example, if
Something's ongoing.
if something is ongoing, and it's
Like almost
enjoyable
two. Yes.
and profitable for you, and you feel like it's going to be an ongoing, you can adjust the scale up and down, right? Volume of work if there's higher volumes of work, then there's a higher hourly rate. That accommodates for all your time being used for them. And if not, then it's retainer. You can stop that at any time.
Your battery ran out?
It's a good topic for the next one.